Fear Zone channel, where you find the best real werewolf stories. Good evening, everyone. Now, let's get to today's account, which is my own. My name is Rodrigo, and what I'm about to share happened to me in the city of Contagem, Brazil. This took place back in 2007. At the time, I was 42 years old and lived with my family on a small farm in a rural village of the city. What I experienced that early morning was something most people can't even imagine as possible. An encounter with something that, to me, could only have been a werewolf. It was a night like any other. After a regular day on the farm, I decided to head to the local tavern nearby. I usually went there to play pool, cards, and chat with friends. It was my time to relax, have a drink, and unwind. That night, everything seemed normal until one of the local farmers began telling a story that immediately captured our attention. He was visibly shaken and claimed that something very strange had happened to his wife the previous night. He explained that before going to bed, his wife went out to the backyard to collect some clothes from the clothesline, something completely routine. However, what she saw left her in shock. On the ground in the yard, a creature was attacking one of their chickens. It was something large, ferocious, that looked more like a wild animal but with an almost human posture. When the creature realized it was being watched, it turned toward the woman. She barely had time to react. The beast charged at her, crossing the yard in an instant. The farmer's wife, fortunately, was still near the kitchen door. Fear gave her an agility she might never have had before. She managed to shut the door at the exact moment the creature reached it. But the beast slammed into the closed door, and the impact was so strong that the wood shook, and the crash was terrifying. The woman screamed for her husband, and he ran to see what was going on. When they reached the door, all they could hear were a few growls from the animal that left them petrified, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps walking away from the house. As he shared this story, the mood in the bar changed. Nobody laughed or made jokes anymore. I glanced at my friends and saw the same uneasy expression on each of their faces. I tried to convince myself it might just be an exaggerated tale, but deep down, something inside me told me he was speaking the truth. It was at that moment that a strange sensation began to take over me. Something was about to change, and I had no idea that this story would be just the beginning of what was about to happen to me. The night was far from over. But the farmer at the bar kept telling his story. He said that he and his wife were completely terrified, but his wife screamed for him to grab the gun quickly. I couldn't help but imagine myself in his place as I listened to that part of the story. The adrenaline must have been overwhelming. The man rushed to the spot where he kept his shotgun and came back as fast as he could. Meanwhile, his wife, still trembling, kept insisting that whatever it wasn't a dog. "It's something huge, strange, but it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before," she exclaimed. The farmer, armed and determined, opened the door and stepped outside, ready to confront whatever that thing was. He said he scanned the area, trying to spot any movement. That's when he noticed the bushes near the fence rustling. Instinctively, he aimed in that direction but hesitated to shoot. It could have been just another animal, or worse, a person. He didn't want to take the risk, even though his heart was pounding in his chest. The biggest problem, according to him, was that the farm dogs were too old to react to any threats, which made him feel even more vulnerable. So, in an attempt to scare off the danger, he decided to fire 2 warning shots into the air. That's when something surreal happened. He described seeing a massive creature bolt out of the bushes, seemingly startled by the gunshots, and vanish into the darkness of the forest. The man went back inside the house but decided not to sleep. He stayed on guard for the rest of the night, ears alert to every sound around him. Sure enough, he heard distant howls that left no doubt the creature was still nearby. By the time dawn finally arrived, he was exhausted, but his concern over the beast lurking in the area had only grown stronger. The farmer's frustration was evident. He said he was so furious that he even offered $30 to anyone who could capture the animal. That part caught everyone's attention at the bar, and a few people laughed, but he seemed completely serious. He also mentioned that during the day, he and his son went out to try to track the creature. They searched the surrounding woods but found only a man gathering some clothes scattered on the ground. This strange man looked frightened and explained that someone had been leaving those clothes around as if abandoning them on purpose. Moreover, the man shared something even more intriguing. He had seen a strange figure in the woods. According to him, it looked like a maned wolf prowling the area. He also mentioned finding some vomit nearby containing chicken feathers, and the farmer suspected it might have come from the invading creature. At the time, all of this seemed a bit confusing to me. It was as if the farmer was holding something back, or perhaps didn't want to fully acknowledge the true nature of what he had seen. His story stayed in my head for days. Even after returning to my routine at the farm, the thought that this creature could still be out there wouldn't leave me alone. I started paying closer attention to the surroundings of my property. My biggest concern was a section of the wall that was still just barbed wire. I knew that if something large tried to get through there wouldn't be much to stop it. Every noise in the middle of the night made me think, what if it's the creature coming here? One night, I was sleeping peacefully when I woke up with the urge to use the bathroom. This wasn't unusual for me since the bathroom on my farm was outside, and I had a habit of going out during the night. Still half asleep, I stepped outside, and as soon as I entered the yard, something caught my attention. I saw a quick movement in the woods near the farm. I froze on the spot, intrigued, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. It looked like an animal, but it was so dark that I couldn't make out what it was. With my curiosity nagging at me but still feeling cautious, I decided not to go to the bathroom. Instead, I relieved myself near the house, trying to stay alert to my surroundings. Afterward, I went back inside and straight to the kitchen, where the window offered a good view of the yard and the woods beyond. I stood there, watching, hoping to catch sight of the thing again. Sure enough, there it was. This time, it was farther away, but I could still see its silhouette moving among the trees. Whatever it was, it looked big. My heart was already racing, but curiosity got the better of me. I decided to do something that, looking back now, probably wasn't the smartest idea. I grabbed 2 pieces of leftover chicken from the kitchen and carefully made my way out into the yard. I moved slowly, barely breathing, as if that would somehow protect me from whatever it was that I didn't even fully understand. When I got near the bathroom, I tossed one of the chicken pieces toward the fence, almost like an offering to whatever was out there. For a moment, nothing happened, and the tension in the air was almost unbearable. Then, suddenly, the creature emerged from the bushes. My heart nearly stopped at the sight of its size. It was enormous, bigger than any animal I had ever seen. I was so startled that I dropped the other piece of chicken onto the bathroom floor. I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching as the thing devoured the chicken I had thrown near the fence. Its movements were quick and ravenous, as if it was starving. That's when my survival instincts kicked in. Without thinking, I turned and sprinted back toward the house. My heart was pounding, and my legs felt faster than ever. When I finally made it inside, I slammed the door shut behind me, locking it tightly, and stood there, panting, trying to process what had just happened. The worst, however, was yet to come. As I glanced out the window, trying to convince myself that it was still outside, I saw the creature again. This time, it was squeezing under the fence, entering my yard. A chill ran down my spine. I watched, frozen, as the creature began sniffing the ground, as if tracking something. It seemed to know exactly where the second piece of chicken I had dropped was. It moved in a strange way, on all fours, yet keeping its body unnervingly low to the ground. I had never seen anything like it before. It was a grotesque yet oddly fascinating sight. To my shock, the creature found the chicken piece I had dropped and snatched it up with the same speed it had devoured the first one. The whole scene felt unreal. I was in shock, torn between paralyzing fear and a morbid curiosity to understand what this thing really was. Something in me knew this wasn't an ordinary animal, and the growing sense of imminent danger made me retreat further into the house. Then, to my horror, the creature entered the outdoor bathroom to get the chicken piece I had left behind. At that moment, a thought crossed my mind. If this was the same animal that had invaded the farmer's house from the bar, I might finally solve the mystery. And maybe, just maybe, I could claim the $30 reward he had offered. It was a risky idea, but the adrenaline rushing through me made it feel like I could pull it off. Without making a sound, I slipped out of the house and moved toward the bathroom. As soon as I reached it, I slammed the door shut before the creature had a chance to escape. Now it was trapped. As soon as it realized it was cornered, the creature began to thrash around. From outside, I could hear the muffled sounds of it pounding against the wooden walls, mixed with low growls, deep, guttural noises that sent chills down my spine. The bathroom was small and dark, and the reverberation of the sounds made the scene even more terrifying. My heart was racing, but I knew that if it kept this up, it could break through the door at any moment. I sprinted back to the house, grabbed my flashlight and shotgun, and returned to the yard. Keeping a safe distance, I observed from afar. After a few minutes, the creature seemed to calm down. I thought, perhaps, it had given up. With the flashlight in hand, I cautiously approached. The silence was almost worse than the noise because it left room for my imagination to run wild about what might be happening inside. When I finally shone the beam of light through a crack in the wooden walls, what I saw left me speechless. It wasn't a dog, nor a maned wolf, nor any other animal I had ever seen. The creature had a grotesque, almost deformed appearance. It was large and muscular, but in a way that seemed wrong, as if something about it was profoundly unnatural. Its fur was sparse and patchy, and the exposed skin had a texture that reminded me of old, weathered leather. My heart pounded faster with every second I kept my eyes on that thing. Suddenly, it began making a strange noise, something between a growl and a raspy cough. Its breathing was labored, and its body started to writhe in a way that made me instinctively step back. It rolled on the floor of the bathroom, groaning in pain, as if it were on the brink of death. That's when I heard a sound I will never forget, the cracking of bones. It was a horrific noise, like wood splintering, but it came from inside the creature. A chill ran down my spine as I stood there, frozen, unable to look away. When I shone the flashlight again, I noticed something even stranger. The creature was changing right before my eyes. Its skin seemed to be pulling back, its fur falling off, and the structure of its body began to shift into a different shape. Its eyes, however, remained the same, bright, intense, almost hypnotic. They lit up the cramped bathroom space like beacons, yet there was no warmth in them, only a chilling emptiness that made me feel like I was staring into something demonic. Then, to my utter shock, the creature stood upright on two legs, like a man. And that's when I understood what was happening. This wasn't an animal. It was a werewolf, and it was transforming back into its human form. I remained still, trying to process what my eyes were seeing. The creature no longer seemed as threatening as before, but something about it still filled me with dread. It was as if I were witnessing something I was never meant to see, something that belonged to a world entirely separate from my own. After realizing what was happening, I went back inside the house, my heart still racing, but I couldn't take my eyes off the bathroom. Through the window, I kept watch, waiting for something to happen. It didn't take long for my worst fears to be confirmed. I heard a sharp crack, like wood being torn apart, and soon saw one of the bathroom door planks being violently pushed out. To my astonishment, a completely naked man emerged, escaping through the hole he had made. Without looking back, the man ran off at full speed, leaping over my property's fence with incredible agility. At that moment, there was no longer any doubt. This man was the werewolf I had trapped. Even in the dark, I managed to etch a few features of his appearance into my memory. I thought that maybe, just maybe, I might recognize him later if I saw him around the neighborhood. I stood at the window, trying to make sense of what had just happened, as the night dragged on in an oppressive silence. In the days that followed, I began scrutinizing every face that crossed my path. Everyone who walked by on the street or stopped to chat at the local store became the subject of my careful observation. But no matter how hard I searched, I couldn't find anyone who resembled the man who had emerged from my bathroom. It was as if he had vanished off the face of the earth, which only deepened my sense of unease. I decided to speak with the old man who had also reported a werewolf attack on his property. When I told him what had happened to me, he simply nodded, as though he fully understood what I was describing. He admitted he believed every word of my story. He explained that he hadn't shared the full details of his own experience at the bar because he knew he would be mocked. According to him, that night, He had seen the werewolf standing upright on two legs, almost like a person. The old man confessed that he had hesitated to shoot it because he feared the creature might transform back into a human, leaving him to deal with the police and face judgment for the crime. When I heard that, everything started to make more sense. The old man offered the $30 bounty for anyone who could catch the creature because he knew capturing it was nearly impossible. I had come so close, but now all that was left was frustration. The creature had escaped, and the man who transformed into a werewolf right before my eyes seemed to have vanished forever. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about what he must have realized as he reverted inside my bathroom. He knew I had witnessed his curse, and because of that, he had likely taken great care to never be seen by me or anyone else in town again. Despite the fear, a part of me felt a morbid curiosity about who that man was and how he had become what I saw that night. But at the same time, another part of me just wanted to forget everything, as if it had never happened. I kept pondering the story of the suspicious man seen in the woods, picking up clothes from the ground near piles of chicken feathers and vomit. He was suspected of being the werewolf, but since I never saw him myself, I couldn't confirm if he was the same man who had been trapped in my bathroom. However, he reportedly mentioned seeing a wolf-like creature as well. These memories and fragments of the story come back to haunt me from time to time. The sound of the wooden boards being ripped apart, the cracking of the creature's bones as it changed shape, and those glowing eyes that seemed to pierce my soul, all of it lingers with me as if etched into my memory forever. Even though time has passed, every time I go to the bathroom at night, I take extra precautions. I carry a flashlight and stay alert to any movement around me. I don't know if I'll ever see that creature or that man again, but one thing is certain: what I witnessed that night changed the way I see the world. And if I ever doubted the stories about werewolves before, I now know they're more real than I could have ever imagined. Well, folks, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.